am absolutely delighted to have today Mark Ellison from Spark and Ellison. How are you, sir? You okay?
Very good. Thank you. Yourself?
Absolutely great. Weekend just round the corner, all sorts of debauchery planned. And so, yeah, end of a long week, but looking forward to it. If somebody's watching this on a Monday, please forgive me for doing the time trap timestamp mistake there. But anyway, we're going to talk to you today, if that's okay, Mark, about your membership of RAN. Obviously, we got involved with that network, obviously, just at the start of the year. And my aim is to get around as many of the key members as I can do to get, talk about what attracted them to it in the first place, what they get from that. And there's a lot of different kind of intangibles there. And I think the first thing I need to point out is, it's been just so exciting from our point of view, getting, looking down this list of agents that are in that group and understanding that I've always known it from a supplier side that you want to get into RAN because of the quality of the agents. But from your side, it's absolutely true as well, isn't it? And it strikes me as that feels like it's an important part of being part of RAN itself.
Yeah, I think that, you look at it from the outside. I think before we joined the network, the local agent had that benefit of being in it. And when you get to know what it actually is and who's in it, and you start to get links with them, you start to get feedback from them, you start to get knowledge of what they do, how they do it, and just the fact that they're so prepared to share information and help you. There's so much of that goes on. It's fantastic.
What is fascinating is how little sharing goes on out in the wider industry, because of course, I hear it so often, I'm not letting anybody know who my key suppliers are because I don't want my competitors to do it. So it very much is like a gated community, that stage. But the minute where you take that local competition, that local competitive edge out, it flips the other way entirely, doesn't it? And actually there really is that open willingness to share, and actually almost a relief that you can have a chat with people and be really honest about it, share the challenges in the marketplace or inside the businesses, and get a full and honest kind of conversation going without that worry that I've got somebody looking over my shoulder trying to almost nitpick.
Yeah, I think not only that, I think even going back to my corporate days, you'd sit around as a manager in a meeting, and I think even then there were certain things that you were prepared to share with your fellow managers in the same company, yep, and certain things you wanted to keep back because you wanted to be the top dog. And I think that in this, there's two parts to this. I think in terms of the RAN network, there's the local meetings, and then there's the advisory council meetings. Yep. The advisory council meetings, I'm part of that, and that is so great in the information you get from there. But even the local meetings, I think feeling you're part of something. And a lot of us have known each other a long time over the years, either as competitors or even working together. And just being able to sit down and talk openly and honestly without worrying about, whether you slightly overlap in your competition is great, because ultimately most of us as either business owners or senior managers, we want to do well. And anything that can help us, we want to take that.
And thank you for that. And just to give a bit of context as well there, so Spark and Ellison, you're down in Chandler's Ford as well, aren't you? This there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Good stuff. And so, do you remember what attracted you to the network originally? How long have you been part of it? What was it that caught your eye at the end?
Well, we were approached initially. I think that essentially there was another company that were members.
Yeah.
They got bought out and so became part of a corporate brand. And we were aware of it, and we were aware of this thing that was actually a pain to go up against, because they were a local independent agent like ourselves, yeah, and yet they had this network behind them that they could sell to people about buyers coming from London and other areas. And that was one of those things where, as a local independent agent, particularly at that time, it was difficult. So when we were then approached and invited to have a look at it and meet with Ian and Richard Tucker at the time, yeah, we jumped in it. And I think once they started to talk to us about it and take us deeper into that, it was a no-brainer for us.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it, that angle there, because so often you're looking for that secret sauce, that USP that, you know, that literally is, you know, so many times you hear USPs and everyone's got them. But that one, to be able to say, no, we've been the chosen agent in that patch, you know, this, you know, we are part of this truly national group of these great agents. That's very difficult to be able to, nigh on impossible. You certainly can't say you're part of RAN. You might be able to say you're part of another one. But here's the other thing, isn't it? You might be part of another affiliation group, but nobody does the level of referrals like the RAN network.
No, I think, you know, having that ability to sell that to people, but I think it's more than just selling. I say selling in terms of, it sounds like I'm just selling something that doesn't really exist, but there is so much more to it. And I think being able to phone an agent and get them to phone one of your potential vendors, and because of the quality of the agents in the network, you know that they will do that. That's really powerful.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. So just looking at it, as we mentioned the referral angle, there's a number of different things that we get into that we'll touch on in a second, but that core element of the referral network, how does that aspect work for you in your neck of the woods?
Well, we pass a lot of business locally because, you know, like other areas, a lot of people will move over a fairly short amount of miles where they're living, because very often it's schools they're moving for, or neighbourhoods that perhaps are a little bit better than others. And I think what really helps you is knowing that you can talk to clients about those local agents, knowing they're good quality, and to a degree tying yourself in with them. And when you've got good brand names around you and you can talk about, we've got good relationships with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, can really help, particularly if you're up against perhaps a larger independent that may have 7-8 offices. Yeah. If you can then say, well, we've got a company that we link with here, there and everywhere.
You can one up them, yeah.
Yeah, it works really well.
Excellent. And talking to the so many of the RAN members, you know, that community angle you were just highlighting as well, that fraternity thing, it sounds a bit exotic but that community angle is really important, isn't it? Talking to a lot of people. Some people put that almost ahead of everything else. Clearly it's got to work you from an ROI basis, but what does, you know, obviously it helps with the members not competing. Is that angle though important to you? It sounds like it is.
Yeah, I think one of the things you miss from the corporate world, particularly, I mean, I know a lot of people joke about the fact, oh, it's meetings. I actually don't mind meetings. And I think what you find with it is the fact that you've come out of this corporate world, you're on your own. Who do you talk to? Who do you get your information from? And who makes you feel as if it's not just you? Either in the good times or the bad times. And I think being able to sit down with people that will be open and honest with you and actually care and want to help you, I think that's huge. Yeah, and that extends, I mean, my own particular level of focus and that in terms of the supplier aspect as well, isn't it? That's, you know, how RAN helps you out with suppliers. Clearly they've had their approved suppliers over the year, but I think it's quite a lonely decision, isn't it, making a choice on whether it's prop tech or normal suppliers. And I see the groups that we've just been involved with setting it up recently, and the amount of just a conversation going around today around AML, wasn't there? That ability again to be able to say, look guys, I'm thinking about using these, and that all this honest feedback comes back is really, really useful. Yeah, I think there's a big part of it. You know, choosing a supplier is always difficult. Everyone's great, aren't they? Obviously, when they're selling themselves to you. So I think there's two angles to this. I think one is getting introduced to the preferred suppliers because RAN have done a lot of the homework on them and built relationships with them. But also being able to phone up one of your RAN members and say, look, what's the good, but also what's the bad? Because there's always a downside to all these things. But if you know what they are, and you know that that's a small price to pay, it's invaluable to get that information. It is one of the things we've been working on with the first, we've not gone out. Kerfuffle's all about whole of market. We think that's really important that you're able to look at everything. Obviously, this aspect, it warrants us looking in a different thing though. We need people to be able to say, okay, you go out and do the homework and come up with the essential providers there to meet a certain threshold.
And the one thing that we're working on with those first digital partners, RAN supplier partners is identifying who they've already got in the network, who will then become essentially a reference list for fellow RAN members, being much so, any time that then supplier wants to talk to somebody, you yourself would be able to say, well, okay, who else do you have within the network? And you can provide that over, whether those are video testimonials, you'll obviously have their phone details to do it. And the thing that I love about it is, yes, on the face of it, the supplier thinks that's great. We're going to obviously be able to get into more agents, but it holds them to a certain standard as well, doesn't it? Because if you think about the fact that good news travels fast, but bad news travels faster, if there's no room for not delivering in there once you've started to work that network, because of course people will hear about it if they're not delivering.
Yeah, and I think also with the quality of the agents that you've got in RAN, if these suppliers are going to be sent their way, they are going to get tested properly. So if they go to RAN agents and aren't performing, that will come back out to us very quickly. And I had that situation really with Richard at RAN, talking to me. I was looking for a supplier. I spoke to him about the three that, well, actually, I was talking about two that I was interested in. He popped a third into my thinking. And it was great to have the information, the good and the bad feedback from him, and actually who's performing well at the moment.
Yeah. Sounds like a little bit, what you were saying there almost makes it sound like you were admitting RAN agents are high maintenance, but I'm not going. I think high standards. Yeah.
Don't ever falls gladly. And listen, most of the agents in this network are very successful at what they do, and they're only there because they're hardworking and they know what they want to achieve, and they know how they want to achieve it.
And thanks once again for suffering this fall gladly. That's it's much appreciated. So you obviously big fan. That's clear in terms of what's coming across. How does that flow through the rest of the team? Are they all on board with it? Are there certain ones that are kind of, more kind of RAN, I was going to say, RAN professional super users there? What do they get out of it?
I mean, we pay our staff commission from it and a decent whack as well. So from our point of view, we want to be part of the network. We get value from it. We can make money from that. And it is the old saying on this, and I say it all the time to members and also my team, you get out what you put in. It's a numbers game. And a bit like financial services, there's all battle with their estate agents. And it's a simple thing. If you don't ask a question, you won't get a lead. So just keep asking questions. And I think from the team's point of view, sometimes it's difficult because it can be a bit of a long burn. I think that the Amazon vouchers that they now provide was a big plus to staff, because I think that instant recognition and that instant reward is fantastic. But down the line, when they get a property referral does go through, they're earning some decent money from that. And I think that when you share that with the team, that the eyes are wide open and they wanted to do it. So yeah, we're lucky with our team.
I was talking to Simon Bradbury about this, and he was talking about one of the.
Who?
What?
Never heard of him.
That makes me like you even more. He was talking about one of the lads who did that, and I think he got a referral, really healthy referral, 800, 900 quid. And his question back to Simon was, is that all I have to do? And it was like fantastic. It's having that awareness, as you said there. And sometimes we are all trained about getting the hits of today, aren't we? Focusing on those leads, the right move lead that comes through today. Is we forget that obviously how much transaction goes on further down the line. And the good news is, if everyone else is giving up on that and you persist with it, there can be really some big gains to be made from that.
Yeah. And to be fair, there's not a lot for you to do. You ask a question, you pop the lead through, and actually you sit back and wait for the money to come. And if you could do that more often, what else would you need to do?
Yeah, because it's two angles, isn't it? There's, first of all, it's the person in the office having the wherewithal to do it. Then the tech kind of takes over, but then there's also the RAN element of chasing that down that's so important as well, isn't it? Making sure everyone's gone up from it. So I think that's a really key element there. It's people working with the tech, and that's when things happen at the right level, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the good thing with RAN is there are some areas where perhaps we haven't got that coverage. But instead of you having to think, well, look, I've told this customer that I will help them.
Yeah.
Instead of me having to locate that agent, I pass it through to Ran, and Ran will do that work for me.
Yeah, we do. That's a good point, isn't it? They do, you know, they will always find a home for that one based on the quality of it. And of course, like, we're being really honest. If they're able to deliver on that, we find out that's almost like an audition, isn't it, for them to come on board into the network? So it works really well. And what would just looking at this from the new members, obviously we just mentioned, look, we're going on the big recruitment drive after our first 100-day plan here to look at getting the new members on in those areas where there are gaps. What advice would you give to new members just joining to get the most out of it? You know, if you had your time again, what would you get you onboarded in the best possible time?
I think you wanted to be part of something, but jump in with both feet and really give it a go. Don't wait for things to happen. Like anything in business, if you open a new branch, as an agent 20 years ago, we opened our branch. You know, we didn't just wait for people to walk into our branch. We went out there, we were dropping leaflets, making phone calls, and everyone was really important. And we every opportunity we got, we did everything. You know, we chased, can we do evaluation? Can we do a viewing? Can they talk to our mortgage advisor? And it's the same with this. If you jump in with both feet and you really try it and you get your team on board, you will find the benefits. And go to the meetings, immerse yourself in meetings, get knowledge from other people that have been part of it. And when you share, you know, sometimes we go through these periods, we're going through it now. The market, let's face it, the market isn't as good as it was. And there'll be times when you're looking at your figures thinking, you know, blimey, this is a bit worrying. Go and talk to the guys that are part of the network. And they'll tell you they're going through the same thing. But more importantly, you know, a lot of those guys like us would have been there before. What did we do last time? How do we get through this? And how can we help each other along? And from that point of view, you know, you can't put a value on that, I don't think. You really can't. And if it was a value, I'd say it's extremely good value being a member of a RAN. But that's, again, I accept I'm being slightly biased here. But what you did see was it when people went into lockdown, there was that camaraderie actually extended around, didn't it? The whole industry. But what was fascinating is the minute we came out of lockdown, for most of those people, then all the walls went back up again, didn't they? And what's great is at that point about RAN continues that week in, week out, year in, year out. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't just agency, that was life. You know, everyone loved each other during lockdown, and we all thought, oh, perhaps we'll all change for life. And no, we didn't.
Little bunny rabbits hopping around and everything there.
And I think that's, and also I think one of the things we really missed, and we're hopefully getting back to now, is, you know, this was great. Zoom and Teams, you know, we all, you know, embraced that. And to start with, those meetings were great, but there's nothing like sitting in a room with people, having some breakfast, chatting, you know, getting all the talk about football and how rubbish some of the teams are out there. But have that breakfast, you get your nice social element out of it, and then you talk business, but help each other out and pass on each other's knowledge. And but being in a room together and being part of something is you know, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool. And in conclusion, then, and thanks so much for your full and honest there. What would you say to anyone who's thinking about becoming a member of RAN? You know, for other agents, how can RAN help them? What would you say to those people considering obviously becoming part of it? Because he's 30 years old, isn't it? I found out as well, which I think is absolutely fantastic in terms of the longevity of it, and to survive like that, isn't it? It says a lot about, obviously, first of all, the logic behind it, the ROI behind it, but then again, the strength of the agents that built this into such a creature that it is now.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes. It's been there 30 years. We've been members since about 2006, so it was like 16, 17 years. Yeah. We wouldn't let it go, that's for sure. I think any member thinking about joining it, I mean, where else do you go? What else are your options? Of a network that's got some brilliant agents in it. And I think when you get inside it and you meet some of those agents, and as I say, I'm lucky enough to be on the advisory council, and some of those guys have been in this forever, and just the enthusiasm comes from them, not just in terms of their business, but their enthusiasm and their love for the network. And that goes out, and there's a lot of agents, even local agents that I work with that have been in this a long time. And when you talk to them about other networks they're members of, nothing's quite as I think cozy or loving as RAN. No.
It's fascinating. You know, we said we were obviously looking at those statistics, both the existing members and obviously the prospective ones. When you look at obviously those hundreds of RAN agents and you look at the numbers, because they're usually obviously by definition better than the norm, better than the average, normally market leader or thereabouts in their towns. The absolute stats, if you look at that network as a whole, of course, it's really, really impressive. And those are the things I think, you know, that's almost making the invisible visible, isn't it? What we from a top level need to do better is getting everybody understanding what the power of dealing with this network is, really.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned earlier on, if you've got something, if you're thinking of something or thinking of doing like AML checks, or there's been lots of changes in the lettings world, contracts, you know, what do I do about this and what should I do with that? These guys out there will say, here's my contract. Have a look at it. Take what you want from that, and that's sharing. And so that's coming down from a national level right the way down to a local level, and people will be very open and help you. And you just can't get that anywhere else.
You just think about that from an HR legal point of view, the savings you get there, those intangibles, absolutely great, isn't it? So, so I have to ask you this so that we can put this obviously up on the kerfuffle site. If you were going to grade your membership of RAN, star rating 0 is don't want to be a member anymore. That would make this really awkward, by the way. 5 is obviously top class. Where are you putting? What are you putting RAN at the moment?
Easy 5. I couldn't imagine my business now not being part of RAN.
Brilliant. Nothing more to be said. Mark, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being a member, obviously, and everything else.
Pleasure.
Most importantly as well, giving you full and honest feedback. It's absolutely great to hear from you, and I look forward to catching you up at the upcoming RAN regionals.
Look, see you then.
Cheers. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, mate.